Okay, we are recording.
Okay. I didn't see it. Oh, I see the light there. So,
Yeah.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Board Game Buffet podcast, episode number 89. My name is Dean.
And this is Graham.
And Graham, my apologies to everybody. I think last time we were bringing the doom and gloom and our sense of mortality. So I thought, this time we're going to be positive. Let's take it up a notch. Show our inner unicorn spirit and talk about nothing but great and positive things to get everyone pumped up for today is a beautiful spring day here in Georgia, where I'm now at. And it was been beautiful up in Toronto from what you've been saying.
Yep, we had a really nice warm day yesterday. Today is slightly cooler, but still you could easily go outside with no jacket on. I saw some people in shorts yesterday. So everybody's kind of out and about and milling and going for walks and whatever else, because we're under stay-at-home orders right now. But they do encourage people to get out and exercise just for, to get out of the house for a while.
Well, like I said, I'm in Georgia, and they are not under stay-at-home orders. They are under the get out there, elbow to elbow, take deep breaths, not wear your masks, and everything will be fine. And I just want to put it out there that this is a hotel room. I would never choose this decor on my own. This is not my home, and I don't have a medical curtain divider between the living room and the bed area. So fear not. I do have a home. I did get to visit it for a few days, but this is a hotel room. Coolest thing about this hotel room are the power blinds. I don't have to spend the energy to lift it myself. I just hit a button and it does it. So,
well, home is where you spend most of your time, right? So I think your house isn't really not your home.
Well, this is a home 2 suites. So maybe, and I've never stayed at one of these before. It's a Hilton, maybe. I don't know. It's okay. It's big. Doesn't have a stovetop. So thank God I have my air fryer, my beautiful, beautiful air fryer. But
that's how you know you've reached middle age, when you go on about your air fryer.
That's right. It not only air fries, it broils, it toasts, and it bakes. So I have my crock pot. So yeah, all I need are some glasses with the little beaded chain to hang, or I guess the men probably wear the ones that are the magnetic ones now, and that kind of like the old man glasses. Yeah. So I have found I've been wearing my cheaters quite a bit at work because I'm looking at a computer screen reviewing stuff all day. So yeah, the one day I went to pack up my stuff and I couldn't find my glasses. I looked all over, finally went out to my vehicle and they were in the front seat. I'm like, well, I must have taken them out when I went to lunch. I'm like, how did I just work the last 5 hours of the day without wearing my glasses? Like, good Lord. I'm like, I could have been putting anything in the file. I was probably just handing out money left and right.
That's right. You're not signing the area where you're signing like over the text of the document.
Yeah. Whatever. So I'm getting to that age where you start to forget stuff, because I was talking to Amy on the phone the other night and we're talking about something. She's like, well, I'm going to send you this picture to your phone. I'm like, I don't even know where my phone's at. I'm like, let me look for it. She's like, you're talking to me. I'm like, valid point. I'm like, it's been a long day. I'm like, so just whatever, send it to me. Then of course it was of some hairdo that she wanted to get. I'm like, I don't care. Like I ever see you.
I am surprised though. I've seen your phone. I'm surprised you can get pictures on that.
No, it's my work phone. My work phone is new. I don't have a personal smartphone. The last phone you probably saw me use was my flip phone.
Yes, it was. That you had it clipped to your belt.
That's right. And it's a protective case. I pulled the antenna up. I said, go for Dean. I can be like one of those when I'm driving, I stop at the truck stops and you see the truckers and they still got the big headsets on, the big foam ball at the end.
It's speaking of getting old. I'm sure I know you were on our live stream on Friday.
Yeah, for a little while.
So Lella and I do No Strings Attached on the Dice Tower every other Friday. We basically play a game. And normally what happens, I have a nice little introduction and we introduce ourselves and go through the rules of the game. So we've been doing this for over 6 months now. So I started the streaming software. looked at the YouTube page and said, oh yeah, YouTube's receiving the thing. So, we did our little introduction, and when I explain the game, and I'm looking over the chat, and people are saying, oh, I don't see the stream yet. It's like, that's really odd. But I'm going through the rules explanation, whatever else. And I kind of got to the end and kind of looked a little closer at the YouTube page and said, preview, press go live to go live. It's like, oh. So I hit the go live button, and it's like, okay, welcome everybody. I've just been talking for like the last 12 minutes explaining how the game works. So yeah, that made me feel old and forgetful.
So that was this Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I came in about 15 after the hour,
Yeah.
and you were going over the rules, and I almost typed in like, Jesus, I'm like, how long do these rules last? Like, this guy's still going on about them. It makes sense that you were just still talking about the rules then.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I was going to give you a hard time about it. Like, I was going to type like, so do they actually play the game on this channel, or does this guy just talk about the rules?
Yeah, that was, quite often when you do anything live, like for Dean and I, this podcast is live now, that you forget sometimes, you almost get into a routine. We know, roughly what we're going to say, and this is how we start. But every once in a while, it kind of throws you off that if something just kind of glitches, you've done it so often by rote that you forget that one thing. And for me, because we hadn't done a live stream in, I think, 5 weeks, that it was like learning all over again. It's like, oh, this is all brand new. What are all these buttons I got to press? It's like, well, I've been pressing the same buttons now for 6 months, but this one time I forgot.
All right.
Is
that getting any closer? That looks really weird. I'm not used to seeing myself. Yeah, well, whatever.
It just a bit lopsided.
Yeah, they've been throwing in so many different book tags and whatever. So, we talked about it briefly, and we're going to talk about it probably again towards the end, about introducing games and stuff to people. And so since we were so down last week, or at least I don't know about you, but I was Mr. Is it? I guess I can't be a Debbie Downer, a Donnie Downer, whatever. I do want to talk about something that I found to be very refreshing and almost, I guess, reinvigorating, or just be invigorating, whatever. When it comes to the hobby, and that is, introducing games to people. And it's not even about, proselytizing the hobby. It's just showing somebody what the hobby is, and that. So there's I'd say he's a gentleman. We have a teenager living with us who isn't ours. He's my daughter's ex-boyfriend. And so he ran into some hard times. So Amy, of course, opened our doors to him and was supposed to just help him get back on his feet. Well, anyways, 6 months later, he's still with us. But I was able to. He had talked about, he had seen all my games and stuff, and how cool they look. So I thought, okay, well, I'll introduce him to him. And then he was telling me, and Graham just kind of laughed and said that that the kid was playing me, but he was telling me about how when he was a kid he had to play Candyland by himself because he did not have a great childhood, and his mother is, well, I'll be polite and say, no maternal instincts involved, and some very heavy extracurricular activities. So I thought, oh, that's so sad. I mean, I remember, when my kids were younger, if they would set a game up, I think it was just they would set it up and then hope that you would walk past and say, hey, do you want to play the game? And that's just kind of how I envisioned this, this poor kid when he was younger, playing Candyland by himself. And so I thought, all right, so we'll introduce him. So I had Pandemic Fall of Rome. I was unpacking my stuff. I'm like, all right, I already know how to play this game. Asked him if he wanted to play it. And he's like, oh yeah, sure. So we played it a couple times. He had a really good time playing it. And so I was having him help me move some stuff from one storage unit to another. And primarily all the stuff we were moving were games that were boxed up. And I was kind of opening up because I wanted to take inventory so I could label them on the outside of the box, so I wouldn't have to go hunting through each one if I wanted something. And he was just kind of like mesmerized, not only with that, but with, my wargaming miniatures and, this and, all the different stuff in there. And it made me start to think a little bit of, because some of the stuff was Nolan's, it was a Star Wars stuff. And I thought, man, did I really spoil my children and buy them too much stuff? Do I spoil myself at too much stuff? But just the sheer, I guess, visible joy that I could see, on his face playing the game. And then I brought out Lost Ruins of Arnak, and we learned how to play that game together. And so when I was leaving, when I was going out of town, he had just gone to one of his doctor's appointments, and I guess his therapist had said, "Well, you seem to really be enjoying, playing these games. Continue to do it." Then, of course, I get deployed. I'm leaving, and so Amy asked me. She's like, "Well, I guess he must have said something to her." Amy asked me, "Well, can you get out some of the games that we've played together, and then I'll play. We'll sit down and we'll play games, with him, as a family." And I initially was like, "What? Are you kidding me? I got to practically beg people to play a game with me at the house, and you're going to sit down and play all these games with him." So I was a little jealous, but then I thought, you know what? If it makes him happy and it gives him something to do, I don't know. For me, it kind of brought me back to almost what I felt like when I was introduced to, different games at the beginning of getting into the hobby, and the joy of the discovery, the joy of, oh man, that's really cool. And there was a little bit of me, since he enjoyed Pandemic Fall of Rome so much, I'm like, I wonder if I could get Pandemic Legacy played. But the ultimate goal is to get him on his feet and out the door. I don't know if I want to entice him to stay in perpetuity, and just so I have someone to play games with.
Now, you said that there's too many people in your house.
And there are.
So does it necessarily have to be him that leaves?
Well, I did tell Reagan that since he's enjoying playing games, she's going to have to give up his bedroom, and so he can go into it. And he's moved up on the pecking order just a little bit. And if he plays his cards right, he may actually kick Amy out of the king size bed, and he may get promoted to that. So yeah, I don't know. It's one of those where I think sometimes the longer you're in the hobby, you kind of take a lot of stuff for granted. It's a lot harder to be wowed by games and stuff like that. And it was not only refreshing just to see someone have so much excitement and enjoyment out of playing a game, which, I mean, I enjoy both those games, but I don't think either one of those games are like spectacular by any means. But for him, they were the greatest things, that he's ever played. He talked about him afterwards, and he would always be taking games off my shelf or out of the closet and just kind of looking at the box covers and then putting them back. And I think I might be able to make him into a war gamer. He is a history buff. So
Amy knows where your storage units are, right?
She does not have a key to my big storage unit.
I was about to say, you're going to come back and everything's going to be out of shrink.
Oh my God. No, that would be horrible. I actually sat here the other day, and they're up above me on this shelf. Last Sunday when we got done, I don't know, we played something, Table Battles maybe.
I think so, yeah.
And I actually punched or stickered like 3 or 4 different games that I brought with me. They're all war games.
Right.
I sleeved all my cards for Labyrinth, for both the base game and both of the expansions. So it was a productive day. I didn't play anything, but it was fun just sitting around stickering some blocks and sleeving cards and punching out some stuff. And they're ready to go if I decide I'm actually going to get to play them. But yeah, it was just fun. I mean, it was, like I said, it was really refreshing because, we just recorded the other thing the week before, and we got some feedback saying, how, I mean, it resonated with some people, but it definitely had a tone of, I would say darkness, but a tone of whatever, sadness, morose.
And I think for me, and I don't know what it's like for you, I kind of felt that I always find that the most hobbies are cyclical. You kind of get into it, you're super excited, you do everything, you consume everything, you play everything, and then you kind of reach an apex and it kind of wanes, and then hopefully it'll pick back up for you again.
Mm-hmm.
I find that what generally makes me wane on board game, and this has happened many times before, is when you kind of get into a rut. You're always playing the same games, or you're always doing the same thing. And I found it had been 5 weeks since we did a No Strings Attached, and when we did it a couple days ago, I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed doing that, because it's a live play of, Lella and I sit down and play it, and we have a conversation going on with the people in the chat live. And even after we'd finished and kind of wrapped it up, Lella says, she said, I really like doing the live streams. And it got to the point where I couldn't keep up with the conversation and play the game at the same time because there's so much chatter going on. And it's like, you know what? Although I say I'm an introvert, I actually do enjoy that communication I'm getting through there. And it kind of got me back into, hey, you know what? This is fun, because it's been something that it had been several weeks since I did it. And it's like, God, I've forgotten how much I enjoyed it, because even when we were still doing
Yeah, I
it,
looked down at 130 viewers.
yeah. And even when we were doing it before, it kind of came into, okay, it's Friday, we have to do it. When we had to cancel one, and then Good Friday came on, so it'd been a while. It's like, it kind of got like you were saying, the rejuvenation of it. It's like, oh yeah, this is fun. I really enjoy doing this. So it was kind of nice to not exactly change things up, but when you haven't done something for a while, you forgot how much you actually enjoyed it. And I think it's the same thing with basically just playing games. If you take a break from it and you come back to it, then you realize, you know what, I really do enjoy this. So it was nice.
Yeah, and I think in the past we've always relied on conventions to do that for us, but that hasn't been an option. So yeah, like I said, it was fun. I mean, it was fun to play a game face to face with someone for a change, but it was fun just to be able to introduce someone new to the hobby. Now, I don't know if he would. I mean, just because of the sheer cost of stuff, and he's got a lot of other things he needs to worry about just to live and survive. But I'm like, well, maybe I should see if he wants to go to CincyCon with me in the fall. Nolan, you're out.
You're pushing Nolan out of the car door, and he's going to pat the seat. Come on, you get to come with me this time.
That's right. But I said to Amy, I said, I don't understand. I said everything that this kid likes is exactly what Nolan likes. He's a big Star Wars fan. Nolan's a big Star Wars fan. He likes he wants the game. Nolan likes the game. Like, I don't understand. I said, why they're not, because they have so much in common, why they're not really friends. Because this kid's maybe 2 years younger than Nolan. And I said, maybe it's because this kid dated Nolan's sister, if that, whatever the case may be. And this kid did run around with a fairly rough crowd when he was in school. And she's like, oh, she's like, well, they get along. She's like, she's like, I don't think they're ever going to be best friends. She's like, but she's like, she's like, they definitely get along. And I was like, well, why, it would have been nice if Nolan invited him for his online Dungeons and Dragons game. But I'm like, well, this kid really doesn't have the means to be able to do that, because he's only got his phone, and he doesn't have that at his disposal. So I don't know. It was just, I think it was a combination of it. It was fun for me. It got my juices flowing again for the hobby. And I think it was also just more of a let's say it was an emotional thing, but it was, it does, at least for me, maybe I'm not as robotic as Graham, but it was it's a sad situation for this kid. And so it was kind of nice to bring a little bit of, I guess, joy to his life.
Yeah. And when I kind of talking of rejuvenation of your joy of the hobby, it used to be the new games got me excited all the time. That's one of the reasons why I always bought new games, is because I always want to be, it's always new and exciting to get the new games. Because I do reviews now, that newness is no longer, I think it changes for people that are doing it as not a profession, but it's no longer just a hobby when you can decide not to do or do whatever you want. I now basically have a schedule that I need to keep for doing reviews on the Dice Tower. Like, it's not set in stone, but I need to be doing regular content, which means I need to be playing new games all the time, which means I'm now buying new games, not so much because I want to play them, but because I need to get something reviewed. So I've kind of lost that joy of the newness of games. So that's why, for me, doing different things in the board gaming hobby is kind of rejuvenating. And that's why Dean and I are trying all these different shows, like the wargaming show and the catch up, where we kind of go through and do like a live unboxing stuff, or the It All Looks So Good and the the Purge, because we're trying to do different things to kind of keep us interested in the different aspects of the hobby. Because if Dean and I are old men now.
That's right. You just had your birthday
I did.
yesterday.
Yeah.
What is it? 47, 48?
42.
42, my ass. Which one? Which one is it?
48.
48.
Yeah.
Well, while it might make you old for mainstream hobby, you're a young whippersnapper when it comes to wargaming. So we'll have to get you like the little pilot wings that they give the little kids if you fly Delta or whatever. We'll get you something for wargaming that people will realize how young you are.
And just speaking of the other shows, before I forget, because I am getting old now, I wanted to quickly talk about our Patreon page and kind of what's happening there. I know we've mentioned it before that we are now doing 4 new shows. 2 of them are Patreon only, and 2 of them are going to be early access. So when you hear this, the patrons will also have just gotten the access to the Wargaming show, the first episode of that. I did want to mention that we also have our top tier. Our top tier gets 2 different things no one else does. One is they get a shout out on the show. So at the end of the show, we'll be going through the people that are supporting us at that level. But they also get a special surprise. We kind of alluded to this before. I don't think we've ever actually announced what it is. So one of my other enjoyments that I get doing it is logic puzzles. And unfortunately, with everything shut down, I can no longer do escape rooms. I've always liked building puzzles like that. I used to do something called geocaching, which was Tupperware in the wood with GPS, and you set the coordinates and people went to find it. Mine always revolved around puzzles that people have to solve to figure out the coordinates to find them. So I figured, why don't I do something like that for our top tier Patreon? So I've got one shot and a couple more scripted and kind of ready to go, that once a month our top Patreons will get a video file on, a link to YouTube that they can check out. And it's basically a puzzle to solve. They're going to be different levels of difficulty. So the first one that's going to be released to our Patreons beginning of May will be kind of a medium one, that you basically, there are going to be clues given in the video, and you basically have to work them out, and you can email what you think the answer is and you find out yes or no. So it's just like a little something that we figured, again, it kind of keeps my creative juices flowing because it is something different. And we want to give something a little extra to our top tier of Patreon. So if you are interested in challenging your mind against my very analytical, scientific mind, I encourage you to check out the Patreon page. But again, if you can't support us, because I know it's a difficult time, no worry. We're keeping the main podcast free. The war game and the catch up are also going to be free on YouTube. It's just the Patreon backers get early access to it and can kind of comment and help us craft the show. But it will be available on our YouTube page as well. So if you want to subscribe to that. So hopefully you can check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/bgbuffet. And like I said, if you want to test your wits against my puzzle skills, that's going to only be available to our top tier Patreon. So I'm not sure whether that one encourages people or just keep people away from it, but it is, it's a way to support us, and we're trying to give you, those people, a little extra.
Yeah, I remember when you were explaining what you were doing, I'm just like, okay, well, don't contact me for any help on those puzzles. That is not my style. If we do like exit games or the unlock games, I am the weakest link in any of those. One, because I can't see half of the stuff, but my mind and Graham's mind work opposite of each other. So, but if you want to see Graham turn into a hardcore war gamer, follow the wargaming series, and yeah, you might see a lot of whining at the beginning because of his dice rolls. Although his dice rolling, well, I wouldn't say those weren't even real dice rolls on Vassal. I cry foul on that. I think you hacked the system. No one rolls that many doubles in a row. But my goal is to not do everything on Vassal. I would like to try something where it's a little more visually appealing, but even maybe see about doing it through Zoom or whatever the technology is. We'll just have to kind of look at it, and then hopefully face to face. But it's watch the first video when it comes out and kind of give you an idea what we're trying to plan for that, at least at this point in time. So yeah.
And I should say, just because it's wargaming Hopefully that doesn't put you off, because I know we do have some war gamers who are interested in it, and a lot of Euro players saying, I'm not interested in wargaming. I'm in the Euro, I'm not interested in wargaming point of view. So if you are curious at all about wargaming, Dean is basically holding my hand and walking me through the introduction of what is the wargaming part of the hobby about. So if you are interested in all, but I've never had an intro to it, I mean, this is my basically first intro into wargaming. So
And
hopefully that will kind of encourage you to say, hey, maybe this isn't as scary and foreboding as I originally thought.
yeah, and also trying to dispel some of the myths around wargaming as well. So like just like the main hobby, war games run from very light to very heavy, and we'll kind of, I don't know if we'll ever explore the very heavy, but we'll at least explore the light through the medium to maybe light heavy. So anyways, I think that's probably good enough for our babbling on here at the beginning. And we'll move on to first bites. I have one game. I haven't had a chance to even look to see what you put down. So how many do you have? One, two?
I put down 2.
Okay. Well, then we'll go ahead and start with your first one.
Okay, so my first one is a game put out by Deep Water Games. It's called Seven Summits, and it is basically it's about climbing different mountains across the world. So there are 7 summits, the 7 different mountains, and there are 6 D4s. I think it's 6. Yeah, 6 D4s, and everybody starts off at the bottom of the mountain. You have the 64, so whoever's first player is going to roll them all, and you will take, and they're all different colors, and they all correspond to a different mountain. So if I take the red D4, I get to move up in the red mountain, basically whatever it says. Once you've moved, you can then do a risk. So it's basically like a push your luck piece. So I could stop at whatever it says. So if I take the red D4 and it has a 2 on it, I will move up 2 spaces, and I can stop there. Don't have to move anymore. But I can re-roll that red die I just took, but I also have to roll a D6. And the D6 has different sides on it. One would be, you climbed it, no problem. There's one side that is, you climbed it, but not as far. So it's a -1, one is a -2, and one of them is I think they call it avalanche or something like that. So if you roll the avalanche, you go all the way back to the beginning of the mountain. But if you roll the smooth sailing, then you get to move up again, and you get another choice. Do you want to risk it again, or stop where you are? So the person who reaches the top of the mountain first will get the most points. The first person to reach the summit gets the points. When I believe it's 4 or 5 summits have someone at the very top, that's when the game's going to be over. But on the path up the mountain, there's going to be different spots you can stop at, which are going to give you different benefits. There are 3 different types of technology tracks you can advance. They're very short, like they're 2 steps each. But if you stop on that spot at the end of your turn, you stop there saying, I'm not going to roll anymore, this is where I'm going to end. Then you can move up your little marker 1 step on whatever technology track there is. And they're going to give you different things. One of them is going to be whichever die you take, you can move up your marker on one of the adjacent mountains, for example, or you get an equipment card, and most equipment cards are kind of a one-time use, give you a free reroll or ignore the risk die or something like that. So they're not earth-shattering. It's a fairly light game, and it's interesting because you need to, if you want to win, most of the time you have to push. You have to place that risk die. Because what you'll find is on D4s, you have an option from 1 to 4. In a 2-player game, which is the way I played it, each person is going to be taking 3 dice in total. So of course, the person who rolls the dice is going to take the one that gives them the biggest movement. So on your second and third die, they're probably going to be 1s. So there's probably not a big risk to rolling that risk die, because if you lose 1 spot, who cares? Especially if you're at the bottom, you might as well risk it. Then you roll the 4 the next time. So now you're in position 5. You're like, I could do it again. And it's your typical push your luck. And that's basically the entire game. It is, it's very light. It's rated a 2 on Board Game Geek. And I'm even questioning that, whether it really is a 2, because it's really just a push your luck. You roll the dice, and then turn order, you pick whichever dice you want to move your person up, and then decide whether you want to risk it. You don't have to risk it. You can just move up the die and say, I'm fine there. There is some decisions to be made, especially if you are really close to one of those technology spots that you can, if I pick the 2 die and the technology spot is only one more spot, then maybe worthwhile to maybe push it for that one extra spot. But if you're really close to the top, unless you're racing someone else, there's very little reason to risk. But if I'm on, if I'm 2 steps away from the top and Lola's 1 step away from the top, I may want to push it to try and get to the top before she does so I can get the bigger points. And you have to reach the top with an exact roll. So if I am on the second last stop, I either have to roll 2 1s or a 2. So quite often you will say, well, I really want to finish off the red summit, but I'm on the second last stop and the red die is a 3. So I'm going to take it. I can't advance because it's too much, but I'm going to do the risk to try and get that final one. So for what it was, I enjoyed it. It's like 20, 30 minutes max play length. So it's pretty short. It is strictly push your luck. And there's a lot of luck to the game, but it has a little ways to kind of manipulate. Sometimes you can re-roll a die or ignore a die or something like that. If you go up Everest, which is the middle one, Everest itself doesn't have a die. Like it doesn't have a colored die. You would say, okay, I'm going to take the red die, but instead of moving up on the red mountain, I'm going to use it on Everest. So that's the only way you can move up on Everest. But if you want to do the risk die on Everest, you have to roll 2 of the risk dice and you take whichever result is worse. So it's a lot riskier to go up on there, but it's also worth the most points. So like I said, enjoyable. It's a family weight game, really simple, dice rolling and you pick. So for what it was, I thought they did a reasonable job on it. Components are nice, gameplay is nice and simple, but it's definitely not a brain burner because I got 7 Summit in my previous order, got 7 Summit and Dominant Species Marine. 2 very opposite ends of the difficulty scale. But if you are looking for a light family game, it's something a little different, you may want to check out 7 Summits.
So I can always tell by how high your voice goes on some of these, where you're going to come down. I mean, this game, I mean, it doesn't appeal to me. I mean, I hate D4s for one. So the fact that you're rolling D4s is not appealing to me at all. The art looks cool. I mean, it's got I guess he's the Japanese artist. Didn't he also, I think he did, is it Quanchi? I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. I think he's done some of those ones that very kind of pastelish, kind of muted colors. I think, I mean, probably because this is a Daryl Andrews design, right?
Well, it's an Adrian Adamescu, Daryl Andrews. So I don't know who the prime
Gotcha
designer was.
I mean, it seems very straightforward. It's a push your luck dice rolling game.
Yeah,
so
it's not going to be. I'm like, if you are, a heavy Euro gamer, you're not going to like this game. But if you're looking for a game to, we've been talking about introducing new people to gaming. This would fit perfectly in that wheelhouse because it is, people understand rolling dice and then moving up a track. It's kind of like a roll and move. So it's kind of very basic game. It does have some decisions to be made, but very simple to explain. So yeah, this isn't going to hit my regular rotation. This is probably going to go on my sale pile because it doesn't kind of fit the game I want. But if someone said, hey, I'm looking for a game to play with my, my kids or whatever else, it's like, well, if you've played any roll and move games, 7 Summits is kind of the next step up from that.
Right. Well, keep this game in mind then for when we have our discussion at the end, because I'll come back to it. So, all right. So my first bite is a game that I think Graham talked about this on one of his first bites a while ago because he got to play it much sooner than I did. But I do want to touch base with it again, and that is The Lost Ruins of Arnak. This is you can play it solo. It plays up to 4 players. Plays, it says 30 to 120 minutes. I'm going to say it's going to play about an hour minimum, unless the solo game maybe plays faster than that. Granted, we were both learning the game. So this is one that if you haven't heard about, just came out in 2020, got a lot of buzz. I think it sold out very fast and then came back into stock. It's put out by CGE and everyone's like, oh, it's just like being in Raiders of the Lost Ark. You're playing an explorer, archaeologist, and you are trying to work your way across this map. And well, actually, I guess on the one side you can bounce around wherever you want to explore, but trying to work your way up the, what do they call that one to the side? The
Oh, the research
library
track, the research track.
research. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The research track. So it's a pretty straightforward game. You do have a lot of choices on your turn, but they're pretty limited because it sounds like an oxymoron, but a lot of choices, but the chances of you being able to actually do, more than one or two of them is going to be pretty rare. You have two meeples, your two explorers, and you are going to place them out on the board in these different dig locations. But in order to go out on these dig locations, you're going to have to spend time units, these compasses, and you're going to have to be able to, well, I say the time, well, they're not the compasses, the boots or the cars or the planes or the boats or whatever. So you're going to have certain cards in your hand that are going to allow you to fulfill that. And that's really where this game is going to center around. It's being able to build your deck in a way that's going to not only give you the flexibility to use those different exploration icons in a way that works for you, but also is not going to bloat your deck too much to where you're you're going to be wasting space. Everyone starts with the same basic starting deck. You've got a couple that are going to generate you money, a couple that are going to generate you compasses, and then you can buy cards. The two different types of cards you can buy, there are tools and there are relics. And what I found most interesting about the game, or not most, one of the most interesting things about the game, was how over the course of the game, the stuff that is available to you is going to swing. So at the beginning of the game, the tools are predominantly available to you. And then as the game goes along, you're going to have less tools to choose from because more relics are going to be available as far as the cards that you can buy. And I thought that was kind of thematic because as you're, searching deeper into the jungle and deeper into these sites, you should be discovering more relics and need less tools. But again, I thought it was kind of an interesting way that they did it. And some of the, so if you buy a tool, you spend whatever cost it is, and usually it's money, and then you get to place that onto the very top of your deck, so you're going to get it next turn. If you buy a relic, you get to immediately, I think, get the benefit, and then you put it. Do you put it on top of your deck still?
No.
Or does it go in your discard?
It goes to your discard.
Yeah. So, but you get the immediate benefit of it. And I don't think any of them are like, the least ones that I saw were like overly powerful. Some of them gave you gold, some of them gave you more time units, some of them allowed you to maybe move your explorer from one location, relocate them to another one. So it's kind of like getting an extra move. Because with only two explorers, once you place them out on the board, they're done. So again, that's going to really limit what you can do on your turn. And it pretty much means you're going to have to work your way up that research track. And the research track is probably the more powerful aspect of the game, at least, I mean, the one time that I've played it, because at the beginning of the game, I think there's 5 rounds in the game. At the beginning of the game, I'm thinking to myself, like, there's no way anyone's ever going to be able to work their way up that research track all the way to the top. It's like, it costs too much, it takes, too many resources. But then by the end of the game, both of us were up there. Both of us had gotten, I got an extra bonus tile out of it. And as you kind of progress your way up, the benefits that it gives you kind of leads you to being able to move further up because of the resources that you're getting. I enjoyed the game. I wasn't, maybe because it got so much hype, I wasn't like taken aback by it, but I definitely one that I will play again. I want to explore the solo game just to be able to explore it, but playing a 2-player, 3-player, I think would maybe be the max I'd want to play it. I don't know if I'd want to play it 4-player or not, because the turns to me seem to get kind of long and drawn out. I mean, eventually you're not going to have anything to do, so you can pass. But if you have enough resources available to you, I mean, you can just keep going and going and going on that research track and working your way up. I like the you can get assistance off of that research track, and you can use their, you basically exhaust them to get their ability for that turn, and then you get them back the next turn. There's lots of little things going on in it that I enjoyed. I think when you go out there, I mean, I don't know how often you went out to the dig, to the dig sites. Um, I I didn't necessarily see it as a huge penalty to not conquer the Guardian. I mean, on the fact that you have to take a fear, is it a fear card? Is that what it is? I think
Yeah,
it's a fear card.
Yeah, if you leave a spot with a Guardian, then you take a fear card.
Yeah. So I mean, and yeah, it does bloat your deck a little bit, but there are ways of getting them out of your deck, because I got a couple out of my deck and I can't remember how I did it. It doesn't matter, but there are ways of culling some cards out of your deck, those fear cards. The downside to the fear cards is that they're negative points at the end of the game if you leave them in your deck. Besides them bloating your deck and taking up space, they do count as negative points. The artwork is beautiful on this game, and it's definitely not I mean, it's a medium weight game at best. I mean, you're not gonna. I don't think there's anyone that you could not explain the game to and introduce it to them. But again, keep this game in mind for when we talk later, because I'm not sure that it'd be a perfect gateway game. I mean, even though I did introduce it to the kid living in our house, and only the second game that he's played, it definitely was a bigger leap than, say, Pandemic Fall of Rome, as far as an intro style game. But I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. I'll play it again, but I don't know if I was doing a purge list, I'm not sure that it would stay in my collection. So
yeah, I had to review this on the Dice Tower, and Lel and I played this on a No Strings Attached.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoy the game, but I think I'm in the same situation you are. I enjoy my plays of it. And both sides play not drastically different. I found the other side, which is their advanced version of the game, it's a little more punishing. So as part of the going to the different dig sites, you can get idols, and the idols are going to be worth points at the end of the game. In the more advanced side, to advance on that resource track, you have to give up an idol, which is a big deal. But it's kind of worth it overall, but it is painful to do. So I completely agree with you that as the game goes on, those turns get longer and longer and longer, because you quite often you're going, okay, well, I'm going to play this card to give me this resource so I can trigger my assistant so I can move up, and that's going to give me another card, and I can play the card to do this, and blah, 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 which is fun. And that's what I really like about the game. But yeah, if you're going to play with 4 players, you're going to be going, Dean's still going on about that stupid card that he's going to play, that type of thing. Right. Now, the good thing is you only take one action on your turn. So even if you are stringing a bunch of things together, it's like, okay, you go, then I go, then you go, then I go. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it, but yeah, it didn't blow my socks off.
Yeah, maybe I need to try the other side of the game board. And maybe it'll be different. Again, I don't think I would say no if someone wanted to play it, but I don't know if I'd be the one suggesting it, at least right now. Maybe the other side of the game board will make a difference. Maybe it's a great solo game. Maybe I'll enjoy it that way as well. But for first play, right out of the box, it was fine.
Yeah, and it's I don't even sure. I'm assuming the main mechanism is deck building, because that's you're going through your deck and you're buying new cards and all that. My issue with the deck building piece of it, though, is when you look at games that are true deck builders, like Dominion, you get all these really cool cards that kind of work with each other. One of the reasons why I like Magic the Gathering, because you're quite often building combos into your deck that when they trigger, they're really fun. I found with the Runes of Arnak, you're really not getting those really powerful combinations. You're quite often getting, okay, I can play this card, which allows me to draw another card, or I can use the resource to do it, but it's kind of missing that really complex combos that you can generate. So I would like to see more cards that did different things. Most of the cards do gain your resource, move your worker. There's not a lot of things that the cards actually do. It's just basic quantities that you're going to get from it. So I'd like to see cards that did, a variety of different things, and try and get the combos going from there to make the deck building a little more interesting.
Yeah, I do think it's a game where there are I'm not sure about multiple paths to victory. There are definitely aspects of the game that you don't like. I never purchased a relic card the entire game. I still won the game. I'm assuming I could have, maybe I would have lost the game. But I think you could ignore the relic cards. I mean, I bought some tool cards, but the only aspect of the game I know for sure that you can't ignore is that research track. If you're not spending time on that research track, one, you're not going to have that many things to do on your turn because your 2 explorers are going to be used up. But there, other than getting a guardian, so if you kill a guardian, you get 5 victory points because that's what it's worth.
But you also would get totems for going there in the first place.
Right, you do. And those are 3 points each. If you go to the ones that have 2, like I think I got my points because I went to 2 of the ones that are at the very top, I guess the level 3 ones. So that's 4 totems. I think I was able to maybe conquer one of the guardians there. And but the research track, I don't see being able to play this game and not do the research track. Like you can't just focus on going to the dig sites and getting the totems and getting the guardians. I just don't think there's enough points there to be able to do that. But I do think you could ignore. I don't know if you could totally get away with never buying any more cards because then your deck be pretty weak. Like I said, I never purchased an artifact the entire time. I just bought a couple tool cards and focused on the other stuff. But again, I've had one play. The other side of the board may be more appealing to me. I would play it again for sure, but it's not one that like I didn't bring it with me on the road like to try to solo game. I wasn't that enamored by it. So, anyways, that's Lost Ruins of Arnak by CGE Games. It's fine. I'll pull a Graham. It's fine. I liked it.
So the next game I want to talk about. So the other game I want to talk about is another Ruins game, but this is Ruins of Mars. The theme of this game is Earth has seen a big explosion on Mars. We don't know what's caused it. Big plumes, and it's basically brought the world together to try to get us to Mars. So we've worked as an entire world to send off explorers to Mars. And when we started digging into the explosion, we found a whole other bunch of civilizations down there. And the goal of the game is to rediscover their languages, and through the use of their languages, rebuild the technologies. The way the game works is there is a main board that's got 5 different locations on it. Underneath there's going to be what are called action tiles, and those are going to be randomly set up at the beginning of the game. And the locations you're going to go to are either going to give you resources or they're going to give you knowledge in a certain language. But whatever resources or language you pick up are going to be represented by the action tiles that are below it. So those action tiles are always going to have 2 symbols on it. They're either going to have one of the colors or they're going to have wrenches. Because certain of the action spaces you can go to will say, depending on how many wrenches you have below you in your action tiles, those wrenches will be able to do this. They're going to be able to get you a resource of your choice, or they're going to be able to move you one track up, one space of your choice on one of the language tracks. You then activate the actual location ability, which again is going to be resources. And you look at the different colors of the action tiles and say, oh, I get 2 blue resources, 1 red and 1 yellow, or 1 green, I should say. Or if those same tiles were underneath the language track, you don't get the resources for them, but you get to move up on the language track. So I get to move up 2 blue on the language track, and we get to move 1 green, 1 red. Once you've done that, you can then buy technologies. So there's 3 levels of technology. And if you want to buy the bottom technology, it's going to cost you 0 oxygen, right up to 3 oxygen, or you can spend 4 oxygen and look through the draw deck and just pick whichever one you want. But on there are going to have requirements. Like this requires 2 red resources, 4 yellow, and 1 green resource. So you're trying to get the resources so you can build this technology. You can't get level 2 technology until you've progressed so far up on the language tracks. And you can't get level 3 technologies unless you go further on the language track. So there's kind of this push and pull of, yes, you can get a lot of resources, but you can't buy the level 2s until you've also moved up the language track. The neatest thing about this game, though, is once you've done all that, you take all the action tiles that are below the space, the action that you took, and you put them all face down and you shuffle them all up. Then you place one back on the location that you were at, and then one to the right of that, and then one to the right of that. And so you basically distribute them all across the board. Then you give the action marker to the next player, and then they will put it on whatever action they want to take. They can do the same action you did, or they can pick a different action. But some of the action spaces will give you radiation. And at the end of the game, you're going to be losing negative points for getting radiation. So quite often what will happen is there'll be a bunch of action tiles that fall under the workshop, because the workshop gives you 3 radiation and gives you the resources that are underneath it. But 3 radiation is a lot to take. So you're not going to do it for just one action tile. But when it gets to 3, 4, or 5 action tiles, you're going, that's really, really tempting. Because there are some technology cards that you can buy that allow you to get rid of radiation. And if you go to the infirmary, you can, for each wrench that's there, you can also get rid of 1 radiation. There are ways to manipulate the tiles. So if I go to a location, I can actually spend time units or oxygen to move one of the tiles from an adjacent area into that action space I went into. The game takes an hour and a half to play, and you are the game is going to be finished when one person has 9 technology cards on their player board, which is the maximum, or 4 of the languages have been completely understood. So one person can master each language, and of course, the person who masters it's going to get the most number of points. Your player board at the end of the game, if you have all the same levels of technology or letters of technology, because each level of technology has cards that are A through D. So if I have a level 1, level 2, and level 3 that are all A's, I'm going to get a bonus for that. But they all have to be beside each other. And once a card is laid down, you can't move it. So if I put an A in my top row, I really want to get the level 2A and the level 3A. If they're all different, so if let's say I have an A, D, B, I get some bonus points, but I don't get all the bonus points. If I have 2 A's and a B, I get the lowest number of points. If I don't get 3 cards in a row, I don't get anything for that. So there's definitely ways to get bonus points there. How far you move up in the language tracks are going to give you points. But the big swing is going to be those radiation things. Because whoever has the most radiation at the end of the game is going to lose 2 points per radiation that they have. Everyone else lose 1 point for radiation. So you're really trying to say, is that workshop to get 3 radiation? Is it really going to give me that many points through all the extra things I'm going to get? Is it going to, am I going to be able to buy the level 3 technology that I need to buy because I need the resources? Or do I leave it for someone else to take and they will redistribute those tiles to kind of down the action spaces? I really like that part of the game. Again, this is a very simple game. It's not as simple as 7 Summits, but it's also not a deep strategic game. You have 5 actions on your turn to choose from, and you're really just looking at the action tiles underneath it saying, do I want to get resources or do I want to go up on the language track? That's really it. Then you're looking at the technologies to figure out which one you buy. And you don't have to buy technologies every round. In fact, there's no way to buy technologies every round because they do take resources. I like that once the technology cards are on your player board, can't touch them. So if you're playing with more than 2 players, let's say 3 or 4 players, there are 2 cards of each type within a level. So in total, there are 4 A's in level 1 and 4 A's in level 2. And the very first time I played this, I kind of got caught when I had 2 level 1 A's on my board, which means it made it very difficult for me to get the level 2 A's because I wanted to make sure I was going to get 2 A's on each level, which means I was buying the technology cards more for their letters, and not necessarily because I need what the card gave me. Because each technology card will give you a bonus. It could be, once per turn, trade in a time to get a red resource, or my favorite one, trade in a time unit to get rid of one of your radiation. So I really like that kind of. It wasn't a very deep decision to be made, but you did have to decide whether you wanted the technology card for the technology or for the end of game scoring points. because sometimes the technology you really didn't need, but it's the level 2A, which I really need to make sure I get the, the 9 points for the bonus. So like I said, very, very easy game to explain. Takes an hour and a half to play, and one that I found enjoyable. It's not a game that's going to be in my collection long term, but it would be a game that I would introduce not as a gateway game, but kind of like just the next step up, because there's a little more going on than just rolling dice and moving a pawn marker. But it's not much more than that, because with only 5 options or 5 locations you can go to, with really only having 2 actions available to you, it's not that difficult. It's not going, oh, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this. It's like, no, do you want resources, or do you want to move up in the language track? Those are your choices, and you just decide which one you want to go to, which one has the most action tiles beneath it. You go to that one. So Lella enjoys it. I enjoyed it. It seemed to be, again, if you are a heavy board gamer, I'd say this isn't going to be one for you, because it's relatively light. But again, if you're looking for a lighter game to play with family members or people that aren't, heavy into gaming, I really like the theme of this one for some reason, that kind of those lost languages that you're trying to rediscover so you can learn how to build their technologies. I thought that worked really well. And that main mechanism of taking the action and redistributing the tiles, I thought was also really intriguing. So yeah, it's, like I said, I'm kind of like Dean with his Lost Ruins of Arnak. I enjoyed it. I would definitely play it again. If someone wanted to play it, I would say yes, but it's not going to be the first game I propose on a game night. So that is Ruins of Mars from Atheris Games. They don't have many games produced, but this one, and I would basically keep my eye out for the next one that they produce, because I was impressed by Ruins of Mars from a very small company. It was an enjoyable game.
Yeah, I've seen that talked about a little bit, but not a whole lot. I mean, it's new for one, but I think the part of the game that interests me the most is the managing of that radiation. It has a little bit of a London second edition vibe to it with pollution. And I think what I like about it is that, a lot of games, like you said, it's okay, if I buy this card over the course of the game, how many points can I generate out of it? But this one, not only are you thinking about how many points can I generate out of it, but I need to, I know for sure I'm going to get negative points because of the radiation this card's going to give me. So now I have to calculate, is it going to be enough to offset, the radiation that I'm getting? So it sounds very interesting. I mean, I watched probably, I think I bailed out right about 10 o'clock last night to go to bed, because I'm young and I have to get an early start on my morning. And I thought it was interesting because the one guy's like, this game's not for me, I'm out of here, whatever. But it looked cool. I mean, I like the I guess the bag pulling of the tiles out, the randomness that it's going to set up for the next turn. I mean, it may be beneficial to you, may not. The radiation aspect was kind of cool, because while the radiation builds on that one side, I mean, if the tiles are that good, you may just have to take it. And so looked interesting. The only thing I was gonna type in there towards the end was, I was gonna be like, Ruins of Mars. This war game sucks. There's no conflict.
It was funny, because as we were getting close to the end of the game, people are saying, "Oh, Graham has this game in the bag," because I was going for all the technologies.
Mm-hmm.
So I had everything kind of lined up, and Lella was kind of doing a bit of everything. So she was decent on the language. She was beating me on most of the languages, but I had got to the top one from the language that's worth the most, and I had all my technology cards. And I said, well, I could end it now. I could buy my last technology card, which would end it, but it's going to give me the radiation. So it's like, do I think I'm beating you by enough that I can compensate for getting the most radiation, because I'll lose 2 points and you're only going to lose one. Right. And it came down to Lella beat me by 1 point.
Really?
Yeah, because it came down to, we were winning. Well, I was winning, but then she lost like 7 points from her radiation. I lost 20. So I went behind her, and I had a couple points on my player board, and it brought me to within 1 point of her. It's like, but just gotten rid of one radiation or was able to do it some other way, I would have won. So
Right.
it's enjoyable that way because, like I said, you are looking at that radiation. Can I end it? Like, do I risk ending it now for all those kind of juicy resources, which I
Right.
really need to buy my last card, or what? So yeah, like I said, it's light, it's enjoyable. I don't know how much of a wide distribution this got because it is from an indie publisher,
Hmm.
but one that I would say that if you are looking for something lighter, this would be one that I wouldn't say it's a go-to one, but if you saw it and you look and you were wondering whether it would be good for the family or non-board gaming friends, I would say yeah, it is fun.
Yeah, it's definitely one that I'd like to play once, just based off of what I saw.
Yeah.
So, all right, so that's going to wrap up our first bites. We were going to do a top five, but we're going to do a top five draft, I guess, instead, because I think there'd be a lot of crossover, at least one for sure crossover. But we are going to do a top five draft of, I don't know if we're going to call them the best games that start with the letter C or our favorite games to start with the letter C. I guess it's all relative to who's picking, but these are board games that start with the letter C. Do you have a random generator thing?
I can pull one up.
Or,
We should really bring dice for this.
well, now that we're doing video, maybe we should.
Yeah.
Or we
Okay.
just do rock, paper, scissors.
So do you want to take odds or evens?
I'll do odds. I don't care.
Okay, so I'm going to generate a number between 1 and 10, and that number is 8.
Boo. Okay. So we'll do the draft. I guess we'll do it in snake order since that seems to be the way that people like it done. And you go first, sir. Go ahead and take it.
Yeah, I'm thinking
going
that
to.
do I take the one that is almost being guaranteed to be on Dean's list? Now I will say before we start this was easy / hard for me to do. I went through my C games and I came up with 18 that could have easily been in my top 5. So that was the easy part. The hard part was then putting them in order of which one I like the best to get a top 5.
Mhm.
So, because I think the other ones that Dean and I will have a crossover are not in my top 5. So I'm going to take the one that's guaranteed to be in Dean's. That's going to be Concordia. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Concordia, you've heard us talk about it before, so I'm not going to kind of go into too much detail, but it is about expanding from Rome in Italy, and you are going to be playing a card on your turn to do whatever action that card is. You don't get that card back until you play the prefect card, which allows you to draw your cards back into your hand. You're going to be buying new cards to add them to your deck so you can do more things. And my favorite part of Concordia is the deck building, but because at the end of the game, you look at how your deck has been constructed. What cards do you have in your deck? Because each card will score differently. So one of them will score for the number of towns you have people in. And if you have multiple of those cards, I forget which god it is, but if you have multiple of those god cards, then your score is going to be multiplied. So if you start collecting the ones that are going to give you points for, going out to all the different provinces, then you want to make sure you're doing that. Some of them will give you points for, how many, the different places that you generate grapes in or cloth or whatever else. So if you get, I think that's Artemis. If you get those 2 Artemis cards, you only want to make sure you're going to be producing a lot of cloth, for example. So I really like that as you are buying cards, you're kind of determining how your end of game scoring is going to be. And for me, that's the most fascinating part and one of the reasons why I love Concordia. So that's my first pick, Concordia.
It's okay. All right. So my first pick, I don't know if it'd be on your list or not, but maybe. Yeah, it probably won't be. But anyways, my first pick is going to be Clans of Caledonia. Clans of Caledonia. I haven't played it in a while, but so this is it's kind of a, there's a common board where everyone is trying to kind of fight for space where you can, it's not really gathering resources, but you're kind of staking your claim to the areas that are going to generate you some resources. And then it's also a commodities manipulation game because you're going to be buying and selling to fulfill different contracts. And then it has some asymmetry to it because you can play where everyone's going to start with a different clan, which is going to give you maybe going to give you a little more focus as to what you want to do in the game. And I mean, the clans are pretty varied as far as what they want to allow you to do, and their special trait that you can utilize during the game. I I enjoy it. I probably haven't played it since what, Mog, when you and Megan and B were there. So that's been 2 years at least. At least two.
At
Has it
least
been
two. Yeah.
three?
I'm thinking three. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I find it enjoyable. Now it's kind of a thinky game to a certain extent, and it does seem to take maybe longer than I know Graham would like. I know he wasn't thrilled with the game time in it, but it's I don't know. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, so I don't even know what all the different mechanisms are in it. It's been a long some time, so I'm kind of going by memory. But um, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I think I like it thematically, and I think I like the competition out on the game board, because the game it can get a little cutthroat out there on that game board, trying to cut people off from either the access to their, because they don't have they haven't invested enough in their ships, which will give you allow you to do more across waterways. You kind of cut them off that way. And I forget what I cut you off for at the end of the game we played together, but it ended up costing you the victory, I think.
Probably. Sounds like something you would do.
Well, yeah, and I really do enjoy the commodity speculation in there as well. There's some pretty cutthroaty manipulation that you can do out there.
Yeah. So Lel and I played this on No Strings Attached 2 months ago, I want to say.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did I
so,
watch it?
So if you want to see a live play of Clans from Caledonia, check out the Dice Tower YouTube one. But yeah, there's as you're expanding your people, you're deciding how much money you want to spend on them. So like the cheapest are like the farmers, and then there's the forest people and the mountain people. Will get you different amounts of money when you do the resource collection. You're also going to be putting things like sheep and cows out, which will give you milk and wool. We can also put out buildings. So you can put out like a cheese making building or a bread making building, which will convert some of your resources into kind of processed resources, because the main way to get points in the game is going to be the contracts. So you're going to be taking the contracts. You can only store 2, but it'll be like, okay, this contract wants, 3 meat, 2 wool, and a piece of cheese. And that's going to allow you to move, and it will say in exchange, you get tobacco, like 1 tobacco and 3 sugarcane. Because there's a little chart where you're tracking all these different resources that you're importing. And at the end of the game, whichever resource has the least amount, so it's the rarest in Scotland, you get the most points per one that you have. So you want to get like lots of resources, but you want to get lots of resource in the one that has the least number of resources available to you, which I really enjoyed that. And again, it's only played over, I want to say 5 rounds or 4 rounds. It's very short. And as we're talking about Lost Ruins of Arnak before, you start the game thinking there's no way I'm going to be able to do all this. But the second last and last round, you are going, okay, I'm going to slaughter my cows because I don't need the milk anymore to get the meat, so I can pay out this contract, so then get another contract. So Clans of Caledonia has grown on me. When I first played it, I wasn't overly impressed with it. When I played it more since then, I've really liked Clans of Caledonia. It was my number 8 overall.
Oh, on this list?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I mean, I think it's one, I assume it's still in stock. I mean, it comes in a very small box. So they pack a lot of game in that little tiny box.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. So my second pick is one that it may have been on your list. I don't know. But that is Colosseum. Colosseum is, well, originally it was a Days of Wonder game. Now I think it's TMG that puts it out. But this is one where it is a negotiation / set collection. I mean, those are the 2 biggest mechanisms in it. And I definitely enjoy the negotiation part of this game much more than the set. I mean, I enjoy the entire game and put together, but the negotiation aspect of this game is, for me, the most fun part. In this game, you are trying to put on shows for the I guess, the emperor. And you're hoping not only to put on shows that attract a lot of people, but also maybe you can get the emperor, the consuls, the different people to actually land on your part of the main game board where your Coliseum is putting on the shows. And you can, through the game, you can expand the size of your Coliseum so you have more spaces available for the people to land. But you are, it's not all of them. Is it just one of the ponds that you can move forwards and backwards?
Uh,
Or is it?
it's both.
It's both. Yeah.
Yeah, because one of them is the leader. I forget who it is. There are two pawns, and
Right.
when you roll the die, you could get to choose which one goes forward because one of them will give you more points, bonus points than the other one.
Yeah. So there's that aspect of, and sometimes your opponent may be forced to have that person land on your Coliseum, because they have to move it, and they may not be able to prevent it from actually landing and benefiting you potentially more so than it would them. So there's that aspect. But yeah, you're collecting these little chits and tiles through the game because you're going to try to put on a show, and you're going to select these shows that you want to put on, and they're all worth varying victory points. And they're going to tell you exactly what they might need, two ships, or they might need three. Well, they look like ferns to me, like three pieces of greenery, or they might need, different types of gladiators. And so you're trying to collect all these different chits or resources to fulfill the requirements of the show you're going to put on, because then that's the amount of points you're going to get. And I don't think it's been a while since we played this one too. If you don't have all the resources, do you score less points?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think you can miss up to, I know you can miss up one for sure. I don't know if you can miss any more than that.
Yeah. And this is one of those games where if early on in the game, if I'm able to put on a really big show that's worth more points, that's good, but that's also kind of a hindrance to me, because you always need to be able to try to put on a show worth more points than the previous one that you put on, because that's just kind of how it scales. And I can't remember if you can't put a show on if it's not higher, or you just don't get the
you don't get the points.
Yeah, you don't get the points for it.
Yeah. So the scoring track is just basically representing your highest, like your biggest show.
Right.
So if your biggest show is, like Dean said, if it's your first, it wouldn't be your first show, but if it was your first show, then that would be your end of game scoring points. So you don't get any more points for other shows if they aren't as big as your biggest one.
Yeah. And there's some bonus scoring tiles that you can get in there too. I really like the game. It's not a complex game at all, but it is one where I just enjoy the negotiation aspect of it, because there's nothing in the game that says that Graham and Lella can be negotiating something that I just can't like step in and point out how bad the deal is, from one side to the other.
Yeah, you would do that, wouldn't you?
Well, absolutely. Yes, because maybe I want to make a deal, because, you might be negotiating to get one of the things. And in this game, I find that, some of the trades back and forth of resources, stuff gets thrown in as just a thought after type of thing. Oh, fine, I'll give you this too. Will that make it better? And it's like, no, I wanted to trade that, I wanted to make that trade with you for this or whatever. And so, yeah, to me, it's just a fun game, family weight game that, to me, I don't think I've ever not enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was my number 10. It's actually kind of slipping for me.
That's because you have the ugly version.
That's true. I have the TMG version, which is, I think, the only version that's available now. Dean has the original Days of Wonder one. And I don't know why it's slipping for me. It's just, I used to really, really enjoy the game. I remember the first time we played it was down at Dice Tower Con many, many years ago, and Lella loved it. And this was before it was reprinted. So we had tried to get a copy of the Days of Wonder, which was impossible to get. And then when they did the Kickstarter, I was day one backer of the Kickstarter one. And we've played it since then. And I know on Talking Across the Game Board, I believe we talked about Con Fever. I've never enjoyed Coliseum as much as I enjoyed it that first time we played. So as I play it more, I realize that I like the game. It's definitely a solid game, but it's no longer one of my favorite games. It is slipping down the ranks.
Yeah, and I was just saying, I think with any type of game that is heavy in player interaction negotiation, that could be group dependent as well.
Yeah.
The enjoyment factor.
Yeah, I think it's still in my top 100 games of all time, but it's not a top 10 game for me. So, like I said, this was number 10 overall for me on my C games. So for my other games, I get to pick now, right? You did your two?
I did
Yes.
my two. Yep.
I don't think you have played my other games. And it's funny that the other games in my top 5 are all dice games, which is surprising. So I'm going to talk about a game called Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace is it's a heavier weight Euro game that does have dice, but you don't roll the dice. And this is what I like about Crystal Palace is you will set your dice to whatever you want, but everybody's going to be doing it behind a screen. Then when you reveal it, whoever has the highest totals gets to go first, but those dice are set. So if I set mine all to 6s, I'm allowed to do that. But I then have to pay for my dice. So if I set them all to 6s, I think, is it 3 or 4 dice? I think it's 3 dice. So if I set them all to 6, I have to spend $18 for my 6s. If Dean sets his all to 1, yes, he doesn't get to go first. But if he doesn't care about his actions, he only has to spend $3. And money is pretty tight in this game. So yes, you can set to whatever you want, but making that decision on what you're going to set them on, or if I really, really, really need to take a spot, do I need to spend the money to make sure I go first of it so I'm able to take it? I like that. And what I can do is a lot of the, so once everybody's revealed the dice, and then in turn order, you're going to be placing the dice out in the different actions. And each action will only have a limited number of spots you can go to. And they will go from right to left. And some of them will be, you need to be able to place, like this spot will take a 1 or a 2 or above, and this one will take 1 or above. If I see Dean has all 1s, and let's say we both want to go to the same location, and I have all 6s, I could go in the 2 or above because my 6 will work there. I could also go to the 1 or above, which, oh, Dean, you can't place your die in the 2 or above. So you're kind of looking at that, figuring out if I want to take this spot, can I screw someone else from not being able to take it? Some of the spots are just, you can put any die there, but a lot of them do have this requirements of you need to have a certain number or above. So when I'm placing my 6 out there, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to cut down the spots that Dean can go to as much as possible. Once everybody's placed their dice out, you're then going to action all the squares in order, and they're going to give you things. The idea of the Crystal Palace is the first World's Fair. So it's a place to produce you are showing off the different types of experiments or new technology that's out there. So you want to be buying blueprints, you want to be hiring people, and they're famous people, some from fiction, some in real life. Like you can hire Thomas Edison, or you can hire Phileas Fogg, or those type of people. And you want to be converting the blueprints into the technologies to score points. There's also a side track that you're going to be worried about, which is how much like advertising you're doing. So you want to move that pawn up far as well. There's a black market where if you want to go buy you need stuff to finish off your experiment or invention, you may want to go to the black market and kind of manipulate that. But if too many people go to it, then it crashes. So like I said, it's definitely a heavier weight game. My favorite part of it is that dice manipulation at the beginning, trying to figure out how much money does Dean have? What do I think he's going to go for? And if I need to go for it as well, then I need to make sure that I go there first. But I want to be spending as little money as possible to do it. So if I think Dean is down to his last couple of dollars, then he might go all 1s, which means I can afford to do 2 2s and a 1. So it's not going to cost me a lot, but I get to go first, and I get to hopefully take the prime action that I want to take. But if Dean says, screw it, I'm going to spend all my money and take 1 6 and 2 1s, well then, he's going to take the spot I really want. So I really like that limited player interaction of trying to outguess what other people are doing at the table. So Crystal Palace came out in 2019. again, I think I did a review of it Dice Tower. I feel like I'm plugging all my reviews and live streams here, but yeah, it's one that I really enjoyed. And if you like that kind of dice manipulation where you're not inherent on the randomness, but you are inherent on trying to outguess what other people are doing with that very first phase, that for me was the most enjoyable. So that is my number
2
2. Yes, my second pick
or 4. I don't know,
yeah,
whichever way you want to go about it.
Is Crystal Palace.
Yeah, that's one I still haven't had a chance to play it. I own it because every video I've watched of it, it looks good. I like the mechanisms. I like that whole dice placement aspect, and not that I would choose to screw people over, but the ability to do it if I so choose. But just that whole idea, I can set the dice to whatever I want it to be, but I'm gonna have to pay for it. If it So yeah, I want to play it really, really bad. So thanks for bringing it up again and making me realize how much I want to play it. What's your next pick?
My next pick is going to be, let's go with one that's not so much dice related. It's a rondel, and that's Crusaders Thy Will Be Done. This game is about the Crusades. Each person represents a different group of people, and there's a main board that you're going to be moving your character. It's a little guy on a horse, like your little meeple on the board, which is interesting. You're going to be buying buildings to kind of increase, how far he can go, how much money he has, what's your military strength, those type of things. Because as the further you go away from the starting point, the more army and resources it's going to take to get there, to overtake the towns, to make them yours. But the best part of this game is the rondel. So you have actions in a rondel. So what a rondel is, it's basically a circle that has all the actions in it kind of in order. And this is a Moncala / rondel. So you have your rondel set up in a circular fashion. And in a normal rondel, you'd pick up your person, you can move as far as you want, and then drop them off in whatever action you're going to do this. But this introduces the Moncala, in which there are little markers, like cubes on your board. So when you want to take an action, you take up all the cubes and you drop them off one at a time around the board. So each space you go to, you drop one off. Because the number of cubes on this thing is the strength of the action you're going to take. So you quite often want to make sure that if I want to take an action next turn, I want it to be as strong as possible. So I want to be able to take the cubes off here and then drop them in order. So there's going to be lots of cubes on the thing I want to take next turn. And then, okay, after that, then once those are distributed, where's the bulk of the cubes going to be? So it's this moving of the cubes around, which is the Moncala piece, in a rondel, which is very intriguing. So you are trying to set up your moves so that you are taking powerful actions one after the other. Sometimes you're going to be stuck with taking a really wimpy action just because you need to move the cubes along. But that rondel is set at the beginning of the game, but from game to game can change. So you could be that I'm going to set up my rondel this way with this kind of configuration of pieces. Maybe next game is going to be a different setup. You can also upgrade your rondel pieces. So it could be that if you take this rondel, you could do movement or buying a building. Well, if you upgrade it, then you can move and buy a building, that type of thing. And there are different player characters you're going to start off with. So depending on which character card you get, could be this is the way you set up your rondel, or you get a special thing for your rondel to say only you get to do the special action. So I'd love that manipulation of the rondel and the Moncala pieces. It's got the Moncala from Trajan, my favorite game, with the whole rondel of a lot of other games that use it. That by far is the most intriguing part. The stuff on the board is interesting, but you've seen how many games do you build buildings and explore the areas on the board? But it's that rondel, which is why this is my number 3/3.
Sure. So I have it. I haven't played it. I got it just because of your recommendation.
This is sounding like just kind of a broken record. I have it, but I haven't played it yet. Yes.
Well, no, I mean the first two I've played. Is the rondel? Does everyone have their own rondel, or is it a shared rondel?
No,
so
everybody
has their own.
Everybody has their own.
And then the setup of the rondel, like from game to game, is there a card telling you what to set up, or is it your choice, kind of how you set it up?
So I believe it's your choice how to set it up, or you can just do a random draw.
Okay.
Because it's almost impossible at the beginning of the game to know what you're going to need where. So when you first start the game, intro games will say set up your rondel like this because that's a good distribution of actions. But later on, you can decide that you want to have. I don't know why you'd want to do this, but you could technically have your 2 move actions right next to each other, which is probably not the most beneficial, but maybe there's some reason why you wanted that.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to play it. I like rondels, as you'll maybe see later on, unless Graham takes it. But yeah, Crusaders, thy will be done. All right. So let's see, what do I get? I get 1 game. Yes. No.
You get 2, don't you?
I get 2. I don't know. Whatever. So mine is going to be. I know you probably won't pick that. All right. So I'm going to take Churchill. I think you've only maybe played it once or a half a game or whatever.
I think it's half a game I've played of it.
So Churchill, I don't consider Churchill to be a war game. I don't know what BGG considers it to be. It's kind of in the vein of a Twilight Struggle, except for this is a 3-player game. I think you can play it with less than 3 players. Maybe there's a bot. I don't know. I've only played it 3 players, and I would probably only ever play it 3 players. It's basically a hand management game. So 3 players, one person's playing Stalin, one's playing Churchill, one's playing Roosevelt. It's about World War II, the conferences that these world leaders are having about not only how they're going to defeat Germany and Japan, but then how they're going to kind of, I wouldn't say divide up the world afterwards, but how they're going to kind of influence the world afterwards. And so you have that aspect where you're at these different conferences. And then you have a very abstracted war, where they're managing the war. You have a European theater, a Pacific theater, but again, it's very abstracted out. It's almost just like little lines of progressing along, and maybe you can skip a couple boxes if you have certain technologies, but extremely abstracted out. Not a war game. I don't think in anyone's sense, but unless you're totally against war, then maybe you would, but whatever. Not up for debate. So like most of these style of games with GMT, you can choose to play the entire game. You can choose to play a shortened game where you're only playing certain conferences. So you can manipulate how much time you want to play. But you're going to go, part of the game is you're going to these conferences, and people are going to present issues for debate at these conferences. And some of them are maybe good for me. Some of them may be good for, my opponents, but you're going to put them up for debate. And whoever kind of wins the debate by spending influence points on it, if they win the issue, then they get the benefits of that issue. And it could be, for all types of different historical things that they were going in. And you're going to move up and down these 3 little tracks. One is going up towards, whoever I'm playing. If I'm playing Roosevelt, one's working its way up towards me, and one's going up towards Stalin. And it's going to be this ebb and flow of up and down, up and down. And you're going to get different abilities or different bonuses during that course. So you have the issues you're going to debate, and then you have the special abilities of the person that you're playing. If you're playing Roosevelt, or I'm sorry, if you're playing Stalin, you can purge some of your leaders basically out of your deck, which is going to give you more power, but it's going to influence it because your paranoia is getting stronger. So it's going to have its detriments as well. If Churchill uses his special ability, which I can't remember what it is, he has to roll the dice because he may have a heart attack, which historically is kind of what happened. And then Roosevelt's going to die at some point in time, and Truman's going to come in, whatever. The interesting thing about this game is that there'll be times where you'll look at the issues that are being brought up, and while it's a benefit to you, you're thinking, okay, well, why are they letting me win this issue? Because it's kind of a negotiation. Okay, listen, I'll support you in this one. I'm going to bring this one up. You support me in that one. Things like that. So the first time I played it, I'm like, man, this is easy. They're letting me win all these issues. I'm just kind of like plugging along. And then you realize that the better you are, the stronger you are at the end of the game. If I'm in first place and I'm winning by too big of a margin, I lose, because the premise behind it is, if one person got so far out in the lead and so far, so much more powerful than the other two are going to say, okay, this is not going to happen. We're going to, we're basically going to gang up against you. And, whether it's, America going ahead and declaring war against the Soviet Union at the end of the war, or whatever, to keep them in check. So there's that aspect. And that's how I lost the first game. Like, man, I'm crushing it, man. I'm winning here, I'm winning there. And then like, oh no, I just lost the game because of that. So to me, the negotiation parts and the conferences that is the central part of the game. The war side of it, the theaters of war, it's important, but it's not to me, it's not the most interesting part to the game. If you like a hand management game, if you like something with a historical theme, if you like the idea of using action points, that sort of stuff, influence points, it's a solid game. I do enjoy it quite a bit, but it's one, again, where you're going to play it 3 players, and you're going to play a complete game of it can take quite a bit of time. So I would recommend starting with just a couple conferences, and not get bogged down in the fact that has a World War II setting. So that is Churchill by GMT.
I own this game because the premise intrigued me. I've never played my copy of it. And like I said, I think I played half of the game. I don't know why. I thought it was you, Eric, and I wanted to play this.
I think we were going to try to play it at one of the mod cons, and it just never hit the table, maybe.
Yeah. So I would like to play this eventually, but Dean's right. You need 3 players for it. It is a 3-player game.
Yeah, for sure. All right, was that my first one?
Yes.
Okay. So my second one that I'm going to pick, I know you're not going to pick this one, but I'm going to do it anyway. So my next one is going to be Caverna. Did I steal that from you? Were you going to pick Caverna?
No, Caverna's
No.
Caverna's my number 14.
As I say, I'm surprised they even made your list, to be quite honest. So Caverna, Uwe Rosenberg, Mayfair, or Lookout Games. This is some people say the spiritual successor, the better version of Agricola. Obviously, that is up for debate, but I like Caverna. I like, if you like Agricola, I don't think there's anything that you would dislike in Caverna. It's maybe just longer. Maybe you don't like the quests.
No,
it's not as punishing, I don't think, as Agricola.
That's just,
and maybe that's what you don't like.
Yeah. So I don't like that in Agricola. It matters where you go matters to me. In Caverna, there's so much you can do that who cares what you do? There's no round angst. Of course there is, but it's a lot less than Agricola. Like Agricola, you're like, I need to get the extra person, like the baby that's around. I really need to be able to build fences. Well, Caverna, it's like, oh, you can do this. You can go in quest. You can build buildings. You can farm. You can do this. You can say, well, so if there's so much for me to do, then does it really matter what you do in your turn? So that's what some people really love about Caverna, but it's one of the things that I liked more in Agricola than Caverna.
Yeah, Caverna is for sure. You have plenty of options. I enjoy the building tiles. I enjoy kind of building out my cave. The quest, I mean, I'll do them because sometimes you just have to. But for me, I enjoy the farming and the cave building. That's the most enjoyable part. But it's one of those where I guess Agricola would be more streamlined. There's probably less choices, a little more punishing, and definitely better player counts. Caverna, I think you can play up to 7, which, God, I don't know why you would, but it can be a long game. I think I maybe played it a 5-player game, maybe it's a 4-player game. It still took quite a long time. It's not a short one, and I don't think. God, it's been so long since I played it. I'm trying to think. It's going to sound bad, but I don't even think there aren't any cards in Caverna, right?
No, not like there is for Agricola.
Yeah, it's just because you got all the building tiles.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it. I haven't played it in forever. I think you can play Caverna solo. I've never tried it, but I think you can. And I actually went out and bought Caverna Cave versus Cave, the 2-player game, because I thought, well, maybe that'll be a better option for Amy and I. and surprise, I've never played it. And that came out probably 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It's been sitting there in shrink. So anyways, that's my my most recent pick, Caverna.
Okay, so I get two free picks. So my last two, and again, I don't think Dean has played either one of these. So my next pick is going to be Coimbra.
I have not.
No. So
I do own it.
Of course, it's still in shrink.
It is.
So Coimbra it's another dice game, and you are going to be rolling your dice, and they're going to be placing them in, I believe it's the city or the castle. I forget what they call it. And there's going to be people out there. So beside each row of dice, I think there's 5 rows of dice. 4 of the rows have people, and the people go from left to right. And you can put a die, and the dice placement areas will tell you that this goes descending or ascending. So if I put a 6 there, and most of the spots is going to be the first one to the left, but some spots is going to be the one on the right. Sorry, the dice always go in descending order, but which way they trigger will change depending on which row. So if you place a die, and I place a die of the same number after you, I believe my die goes to the right of yours, not to the left of yours. So I don't push you down. But when all the dice have been placed, you then trigger the dice row by row. The first row is going to give you a special action it's the same in every game. There's always the same special actions you can do. The people, though, the person, let's say it's going to go from left to right, and I put a 6 there, Dean put a 5, and I put a 1 there. So my 6 gets to go off first. Whichever one I take is going to cost me 6 coins, because that's the die, or 6 coins or 6 army. That's the 2 currencies that they're going to be used to buy in the game, because I put a 6 die there. Dean then will spend 5 whatever, and then I will pay 1 what coin or army, depending on which one I buy. So yes, you can, if you really want the card, you'll want to put a 6 there, or a high number of value there, but then you have to pay coins for it. So it's, again, same with Crystal Palace. You basically pay for the dice that you're putting out, which I quite like that. Once you take the people, they're going to give you maybe a one-time action or an ongoing ability. And then whatever dice you take, sorry, it's a dice pool that gets rolled, and each person will draft out of the pool. You don't roll your own dice. It's there, you draft them. But they're going to be different colors. So the colors don't matter for when you take the people. But the next part of the round is you get to manipulate a track. So there's like a religion track, a money track, a power track, and something else. And those correspond to the dice that you took. So if I took the purple die, I move up on the purple track. And the tracks are going to be, as you go up them, you're going to be able to get special bonuses. And at the end of the game, who's ever the furthest is going to get the most points. But then once you're done the actions on your round, you're going to get income, and your income is going to be based on where you are on those tracks. So if I took a yellow dice, for example, the yellow dice allows me to move up on the money track, so which means I'm going to be getting more money. So maybe I can afford different dice, but then I'm losing out on some of the other tracks. There is another section of the board which is like a map, and some of the actions you're going to be able to do, which are going to be able to move your monk around, I think it is, because you're going to the different monasteries. And each one you go to is going to give you usually a one-time ability, but then they're also going to be scoring points at the end of the game. Because at the last thing you do on your turn is there's a bottom bonus track. At the end of each round, you're allowed to buy into one of these bonuses, and they're going to change from game to game. But every round you can only buy one, and they're going to cost you coins to buy into it. Some of them are going to be like, you're going to score points based on how many monasteries you went to, or if you, for whatever other bonus ones you've got, you're going to get so many points. Or if you were able to get this on the track, or your green people that you've bought are going to score points. Those type of things. Again, it's only 5 rounds, I want to say. It's either 5 or 6 rounds. So there's a set number of rounds you're going to go to. And of course, you're like all these other games I've been mentioning, You never have enough time to do everything. You kind of look at in the first round going, there's no way I can do it all. But then you start to kind of focus. I'm going to focus on moving my monk around. So I'm going to be manipulating the tracks to make sure every time I move the monk, he's going to be able to move more spaces. But then I really need coins as well. So I got to be manipulating those two tracks. Maybe I'll ignore the royalty track this time because that's just worth points at the end of the game. It doesn't give me anything during the game. Well, it's not a lot of points you're giving up. So there's kind of decisions like that. You can't do everything. So you really kind of got to focus your strategies as you go along to kind of pick which way you want to go. Again, it's that dice manipulation, which I enjoy because you get to draft. There's 1/6 out there. I really want that card, but is it worth me paying 6 coins or 6 army for that die? So if I take the 6, I may not be able to use it because I don't have the coins. So maybe I take a middle die, which may not mean that I get the one that I want, but oh, look, there's 2 cards in that row I want. So if Dean goes first, I don't care which one he takes. I'll pay the lesser amount to take the other one that I could use. So I like that. It's like I said, it's kind of a fun game of trying to figure out what your opponents are doing. And again, you want to spend the least number of resources to get the one thing that you really want. So kind of see a trend of why I like this. So that is my number 4/2, Coimbra.
Yeah, another game that I purchased because some jerk on the podcast somewhere said how great it was. But yeah, someday I'll get to play it.
Yeah.
All right, my final pick is one that I know you haven't played, and it is because since I said Churchill wasn't a war game, I want to keep it war game free. So I'm not going to go with Combat Commander. I'm going to go with Colors of Paris. Now, Colors of Paris is definitely a lighter game, family weight game, whatever you want to call it. And the reason I like it, Graham talked about Crusaders I Will Be Done and the Rondelle. So Colors of Paris has a rondelle in it, but it's a shared rondelle. Everyone has to use the same rondelle. And that's really what this game focuses around. You are artists in Paris and you're trying to, create these great paintings or whatever. So you're going to be getting different colored cubes, which are representing your different paints or pigments. And each painting requires a certain amount of whatever, red or green or white, so on and so forth. And you're using this rondelle to not only collect these different paints, but you're also using the rondelle to be able to actually paint, put cubes out on a painting to, you may be able to complete it in one turn, depending on, how much you've progressed on the track, or you may just be able to put a few cubes out at a time. You're going to use a rondelle to get the paints, to actually do the painting. There's other mechanisms on there, other things you can do on there as well, depending on which location you take. But you also have a player board in front of you, and your player board, you have these 3 different tracks, which are going to increase your ability to either collect a higher level number of paints or a higher number level of pigments. It's going to increase the amount of spaces, like maybe they're doing paint by numbers, I don't know, but at the beginning you can only place 2 cubes out, and then you can place 3 cubes out on your painting, and then 4. So I guess your skill of being able to create your painting faster goes up. And there's another track on there as well, and I can't remember off the top of my head what that does. But your skill levels increase as the game goes on. Because these, again, the spaces that you're placing your meeples on, your workers on this rondelle, are going to give you, again, paint, allow you to paint different things. The interesting thing I find about this rondelle, a couple of things, is that obviously, depending on the player count, some of the areas are blocked off. They can't be used. But you're taking turns. You're placing your workers out on this rondelle. You're gonna get that action. And then there's like the main center rondelle, there's an outer one. I want to say there's like 3 different tiers to this rondelle. And if you, in this very center of it, there's like maybe 2 or 3 spaces. One of them allows you to steal the first player marker. One of them allows you to manipulate the rondelle, because normally it moves 1 space at the end of the turn. If you go there, you can move it up to 2 spaces. You don't have to, but it gives you that option. So you can kind of screw, some other people over if based on what their game plan is. So that's kind of cool. But the other interesting thing about this game or this rondelle is that at the end of the turn, let's say you have 3 meeples out on the rondel, maybe it's 4. You take them back to use the next turn. You always have to leave one rondel or one meeple out on the rondel. So you're locking down a space potentially. Now, some of the spaces can take more than one meeple, but you could lock down a space that, that I may need, or that, someone else may need. So there's that kind of that, I'd say it's a mini game, but there is that kind of strategy involved in it. And then again, being able to manipulate the rondel 2 spaces or 1 space, depending on if you take it, it gets kind of cutthroaty. I remember the first couple of times I played it with Amy, she had no problem with understanding the importance of being able to either get first player or to manipulate that rondel or to leave her meeple in exactly the spot that she knew I'd want to go, because she can look at my painting and see, oh, he's going to need green. Well, I'll just stay here. Again, it kind of comes down to, is it more beneficial to me to stay there or to screw my opponent over? But for a light, well, it's not, I mean, for a very, let's say a lighter medium weight game, a family weight game, it's it can get a little mean, but it's also got enough strategy in it that I have no problem playing this game anytime that someone wants to play it. Again, I don't know if I would pull it off the shelf and say, hey, do you want to play this? If I had my choice. But if she's in the mood and she wants to play the game, absolutely. It has enough on it going on. It doesn't outstay its welcome. There might be one aspect of the game that I think might be a little unbalanced with the black cubes. When they all disappear, it does trigger the end of the game, but they are worth some major points in that you could focus on just getting those black cubes and not doing as many paintings and possibly win the game at the same time. But that's a small point. I've enjoyed it. I don't remember the name of the company or how easy it is to get here in the States, but that is The Colors of Paris.
I have not played that one.
Yeah, and I don't know if you'd find it enjoyable. I mean, like I said, the rondel is the most interesting part of the game, which I think you could say that for most games with a rondel.
Okay, so for my last pick, which C game do you think would be? It's my number 1 game of all my Cs that you have not played.
Okay, so Concordia, so C games that I haven't played. Well, I wouldn't have it in my. Do I own it?
I don't think you do, because it's got a very ugly cover.
Are you just going to call it Chain Magnate and leave the food off of it?
Nope.
It's not Kalis.
Nope. It's a game I've talked about before. It's got dice in it. No.
What is it?
Circadian's First Light.
Oh yeah.
I've talked about this game before. It's definitely by far my favorite C game. It's funny, as much as I hate dice, I've got quite a few dice games on my list.
Yes, you do.
So Circadian's First Light, you're going to have a pool of dice, and you can gain more dice as the game goes on. You're going to be rolling them behind your screen on your player board. Then you're going to allocate them on your player board of which actions you want to take. Some of them are going to be to man your farms, so you can get more resources. Or they're going to be going out on your explorers, which are like little vehicles. Then when everybody's finished placing the dice, everybody removes their screen, and all the ones in the vehicle are the ones that are going to be going to the worker placement pieces in the middle of the board. So the ones on your farms are always going to activate. But the ones that are on your vehicles, in player order, you're going to be placing those dice on the different action spaces on the board. And again, quite often the action spaces will be, the die is the power of the action you're going to take. You want to be collecting water. You want to be collecting other resources. You want to move the harvester on this new planet to hopefully open up some more areas for you. You want to go to the Senate and get technology tiles, or you want to go. The ultimate goal is basically to not bribe, but offer gifts to the residents of this new world, because we as players are all competing for their favor. Who's going to be able to partner with them to exploit their resources and kill them all when they're not looking. But each different race has a different requirements. So you want to be using your dice to manipulate them so you can give them the resources that they're looking for to gain their favor, to score points at the end of the game. It's a game where you need to be doing a little bits of everything. And it's, again, going to be looking at what other players are doing and trying to figure out, do I need to put my really high dice out of my vehicles to make sure that I get to go first and be able to, well, at least be able to take the ability that I want to take it. Like if I know Dean's really into farming and he's always been using the harvester to move his farming pieces on the board, do I want to try and get there first, or do I care? So if he moves it, depending on the die value you put, for example, on the harvester, will determine which direction it goes in. So if I really need the harvester to go, or if I need my harvester to go this way, I want to make sure that Dean also doesn't want his harvester to go that way. So maybe he'll take another direction, like put his die to go in the 3 direction. I'll put mine on the 6 to make it go that way. So those type of things. Or if I know that we both need water, water is an action you can take, and again, depending the die value you put there, you're going to get more water. Or if I know that we're both getting close to being able to offer gifts to a certain of the aliens on the planet, I want to make sure I get there first, because there's a little thing for dice manipulations. You can put whatever die you want there. And once you place a die, it's going to be locked in. If it doesn't match any other die value, then you're fine. But if it matches one, then you start to move this negative track down. And there are some times when those negative tracks are going to trigger, which is going to be a negative effect for you. So you're trying to look at the die and figure out when your die is going to be activated there. But offering these gifts to the people locks one of your dice, which means your dice pool starts to shrink. So there are other actions you can get to get more dice. So your number of dice you're going to have per round, I think there's a minimum of 3, but it's going to fluctuate from round to round depending on what you do. I like that. I like even though if you, like typical me, if you roll all ones, those aren't useless, because if you have the farms usually will take like the low number values. And some of the action spaces will take low action spaces. But then some of your vehicles you can buy will allow you to manipulate the dice value. So add 2 to whatever die you have, or, plus or minus 1, those type of things. So you can hopefully use some of your technologies to manipulate your dice. So you are reliant on the randomness of the dice, but there's lots of ways to manipulate your dice to kind of get really what you need. And it's always, yes, you want to take all the worker action spaces, but if you don't man your farms, you're not getting any resources to pay for everything. So it's kind of that push and pull of how many do I keep back? How many do I send out? And the ones I do send out, which actions do I want to make sure that I'm taking? So I send the right die value in the right vehicle so I can manipulate the dice when they're out there. It goes until, I forget it's been a while since I played this as well. I forget what the end of game score is, but there's quite often at the beginning of the game, you struggle to get all resources. You think, again, I don't have anything. I've always found at the end of the game, you have piles of resources behind your screens, and you're buying everything on the board. So the game really ramps up. So you're getting lots of resources, but then you're buying the more expensive stuff, which takes a lot of resources. You're going to be getting cards in your hand as well that you can choose to build them by taking one of the worker actions. But then those require a lot of resources. So you need resources to send your vehicles out. You need resources to either exchange one resource to another resource. You need other resources to give up to the people, but you also need resources to build technology. So it's all about resource generation and then how you spend those resources. So really enjoyable. This one, I have done a review on the Dice Tower for, but no live playthrough. But it's definitely one of my, it's my favorite C game. And it was, I'm sure we'll talk about this in a bit, but I know I went up to 18 for my list. And the one that used to be one of my top 10 games of all time was Commands and Colors Ancients. That's, if you notice, that fell out of my top 5 games. It's my number 6, but it just fell out. Just because of how many games that start with C that I really, really enjoy. Oh, you're on mute.
There we go. Yeah, I do not own this game, but I definitely want to play it. I know you've raved about this game. I think the only reason I don't own it is because it probably had a very small print run, and I didn't get a copy of it before you talked about how good it was. Yeah, I knew when I said C games for this top 5 list or draft that there'd probably be no shortage of choices. And I, just looking through the games that I own, I'm like, yeah, it's a good one. That's a good one. So definitely wasn't hard to come up with a list, a little harder to narrow it down. I totally forgot about Commands and Colors, Ancients not being like neither one of us picked it. And we both talk about it quite a bit. I guess I was trying to like keep war games off of it because I feel like I sometimes talk about them too much. But yeah, I mean, I think, I had, I'm trying to think the other one, a couple of the other ones I had on my list. I didn't have them written down, but um, again, it's one where I'm surprised that Concordia. So you say Circadian's your number one, not Concordia.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's surprising. I know how much you like Concordia, so
Yeah. So the other ones I had on my other list were Commands and Colors, Coffee Roaster,
yeah.
Coloma, Cooper Island, Champions of Midgard, Caverna, Salon, which is the tea game, Cinque Terre.
Oh yeah, I forgot about. See, I don't own that one, so that's not on my list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chimera Station,
Okay.
China Rails. So, like I said, I easily came up with 5 C games, and I'm kind of sad that Commands and Colors didn't make my list, or Coffee Roaster. Those are kind of the next ones on my list. So when Dean said we're going to do a draft, it's like, okay, that's easy enough for me to do because I've got 10 games that I've easily used for this list.
Yeah, I was surprised that Chronicles of Crime wasn't on your list.
Because I don't like Chronicles as crime as much as I like Detective.
Oh, okay, I thought you did.
No.
Yeah, I mean, and going down my list of games that I own, there are quite a few on here that could probably make the list if I just got them played. But yeah, whatever. First world problems, I guess, as the kids would say.
Yeah.
I mean, Cosmic Cows. How did Cosmic Cows not make my list? A classic Yahtzee style game. If anyone wants to know how bad Cosmic Cows are, if you look it up on BGG and go under the comments or ratings, look under the 3 ratings because I have a nice comment in there about it. But maybe I'll give that to her on her wedding day. That'll be my gift to my daughter. She can have it back. So, all right. What is it? Where are we at on time? I can't see it.
I don't see it either.
Yeah. Okay. What do you want to do? Our Ask the Chef, or do you want to save it? I don't know how long we've been going, so
it's up to you. I mean, we had a long episode last time. We could cut this one short.
Okay.
Kind of balance it out.
Yeah. We'll save the Ask the Chef topic for the next time, or maybe it might. Heck, if we really get into it, it might warrant a full episode of Coffee Talk, maybe. But all right. I think that's good enough. I think we can wrap this one up. Episode 89 is in the books. And at the end of the month, see, I think technically May 1st, I went back and looked. I think May 1st was when the beginning of May was when episode number 1 actually dropped. We did an episode 0 sometime in May, just introducing it. So I usually count May as our anniversary date. So yeah, we're closing in on year number 4. So who knows? Once I'm out at year 10, no matter what. But I think we've already talked to Patreon. We've already talked about all the other stuff. So if anyone wants to drop us an email, shoot us an email at boardgamebuffetpodcast@gmail.com. I know a lot of people, maybe it's the demographics. We're much more into just using emails than other stuff. But you can also send us a message on Facebook at the Board Game Buffet podcast page, Twitter at Board Game Chats. And Graham, I think, what's your MySpace account?
I forget what it is now. It had something to do with my old band.
Your old band? Were you in a band? No. I was going to say, well, nothing would shock me. Your techno electronica music. Before I got my haircut, for those that aren't watching the video, so I finally got a haircut, shaved the beard, not totally off, but at least back to normal looking. And before I got my haircut, I was almost going to take a picture with it all combed down in front of my face to do a flock of seagulls tribute photo for you, just so you could have it, get it blown up for the background of your wall there. So
no, I I still have the picture. Maybe I should use that for my backdrop. Next one is the picture of you from the very first Grand Con.
I don't remember that one.
No, with the cat ears on.
Oh yeah. As long as you don't get a still photo of my YouTube video.
Oh, I've got one of those.
No. That will end the podcast. Yeah. Just a still boop. Don't go searching the internet or YouTube for that. Thankfully it's not under Board Game Buffet. But all right. Well, anything else to add?
No, just we do have another werewolf game coming up this Friday, April the 17th. Sorry, Saturday, April 17th. If you're interested in that, I think we've got a couple more players. We're always looking for more. So if you're interested, let us know. Dean gave you our contact information. We started at 8 o'clock on Saturdays. If you've never played werewolf before, you can join 15 minutes early. I can go through the rules and answer any questions before we get going. It's a great group of people. They're all nice and down to earth. No one's yelling and belittling anybody on our werewolf, which is nice. So yeah, check that out.
Yeah, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Just got to let us know ahead of time. Shoot an email because Graham wants to send you a link for it. But yeah, check it out. It's been a lot of fun. I mean, I was never a werewolf player before this, so I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, werewolf, April 17th. And you said something about doing the Patreon shout outs. When are we going to do that?
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's right. I mentioned at the beginning, we should thank our two top tier patrons, which are Viger and Tom.
Yeah, I did see Tom. I saw the email that he had upped his pledge. So yeah. And I don't know when Graham is planning on launching his, what are you calling that? Mind games?
Yeah. So beginning of May.
Beginning of May.
Yeah. So anybody in the top tier will get the video. We'll send it to your email address that you have through Patreon. So you'll receive a link to a video. So you watch the video, we'll explain a bit of what's happening and then give you some instructions on how to solve the puzzle. Like I said, if you they're not going to be easy. So hopefully it will take you more than 10 minutes to solve the puzzle. But I had fun doing them, and I've got, like I said, I've got a bunch more that are all lined up for it. So hopefully over the next, I've got 6 of them lined up. So hopefully one a month for the next 6 months.
Cool. Well, I think Amy will enjoy that, but unless she's going to be a Patreon subscriber, she's not going to have access to it. So yeah. I'll tell her she's just going to have to subscribe. But do I want her subscribing? I don't know. Do I say anything in there that's incriminating about how much games cost? I might have to hide that information. So, all right. Until next time, as always, please take care of yourselves and your loved ones. See ya.
See ya.